Hello, everyone. It's Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation Distribution Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey, everybody. Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. So welcome to the Shipwatchers Podcast, episode 28, Thanksgiving edition.
Thanksgiving edition. Do you have a good Thanksgiving?
Well, actually, ours is a little different. So our son works. So we decided to kick Thanksgiving out up the road a bit. So we're doing it tomorrow.
Okay.
So we took some family. We just went out the other part of the family and went to a diner yesterday and had a Thanksgiving meal, and that was different and nice. And then the cool thing is I'm taking them to the cruise port right after this podcast. So
cool.
The Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers admin is actually dropping people off at the cruise terminal today. So
you're running the Balto Ches shuttle.
Yeah. Hey, I like it. Now, how fast can I get that magnet ordered from Amazon?
I'm sure there's something on Etsy you can order.
Yeah.
We had ours. We had our Thanksgiving on Wednesday night. Had all of the family around. Had my buddy from high school from South Carolina. He made it over, and
nice.
He and my son had their annual Tecmo Bowl competition. You know,
nice.
Yeah.
Not Wii bowling. Remember when Wii bowling was the thing?
This is old Nintendo original.
Right. You know, I know. Yeah, old school.
So last year, my son schooled my buddy who was upset and shamed that he got beat by his own game. So that was this was the redemption
tour
episode. Yeah, so we all had a good time eating ham and turkey and the fixings and everything. So
awesome. The gaming sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's, they get in there and they trash talk and then they hug it out and go on.
That's great. See? That's worth video. I don't know about this podcast thing though.
There you go. I got documented pictures, but I have promised not to show what the score was to help my buddy out. So
that's hilarious.
All right. Even though it's a short week, you want to get into shipping updates?
Yeah. So I don't know if you all remember, but so it was like 4 weeks ago we had the best container throughput, best container, highest container total for the week, since the bridge collapse, right? Yeah. That next week we beat it. This past week we almost matched it.
Wow.
So basically 3 weeks in a row are like the three highest totals for container transactions 3 weeks in a row since the since the bridge came down. Nice. And then last week, November 19th and 20th, 3,800 container moves 2 days in a row.
Wow.
So it sure seems that things are looking up. So let's just go over the averages. So this is the average daily container transactions, per day, but it's averaged out for the week. So 4 weeks ago, 3,370. 3 weeks ago, 3,550. Last week, 3,535. And then this week is 3,370. Even though that's a 3-day average because
sure,
Seagirt was closed yesterday. And it was kind of interesting because when you look on the schedule, well, first off, the Port of Baltimore puts out an email that says, hey, Seagirt's closed.
Right.
And then yesterday, because this is what I do, I pay attention to all this stuff every day. And so I see this container ship coming north and I think, oh, that's going to go to the anchorage. No reason to bring that in like a day ahead of time. And so, they brought it in. And so it's not on the schedule till tomorrow, and the
Interesting.
cranes are still up. But the tugboat drivers brought it in, and obviously the line handlers were there to tie it off, and so they're just hanging out at the terminal, waiting for. I didn't even look, so they might be working it. No, wait a minute. Yeah, they might be working it. Might be working it now.
Sure. Okay.
But I was surprised to see that they would bring it in on a holiday, because I don't know how that works. Do you have to pay like terminal fees if you're just tied up? I don't. And they're not.
I don't know. There are definitely terminal fees. I mean, anytime. Well, part of the argument is if the ship is in port, it's not making any money. It's costing money. There, that ship is going to be making its money while it's underway. Now, the nature of doing business is you do have to tie up and discharge or take on more freight in order to go make that money. But there may have been some discussion on, maybe a reduced fee in order to line up, at a certain time. Typically, when you bring in, vessels, and you have labor, there is an overtime or a holiday pay that's associated with that. So
Right.
there may have been something that was negotiated out in order to help streamline what's happening in the, once the terminal comes back open. But it may have been, hey, look, let's get you in early. Yeah, you're going to pay the extra fee, but it's going to benefit everybody to try to work into that slot because of the free
Right.
day off.
Yeah, could be. Because maybe maybe there's and I don't know how this works, right? So, okay, you go to Anchorage, right? And then the pilot comes off. And then the next morning, another pilot comes back out, right? So maybe there's a pilot disembarking fee. And maybe so, okay, let's trade 2 pilot disembarking fees for 1 tie-up fee. It'd be
So,
interesting to know, so here it is, 8 years in, Shipwatcher's admin guy, and, you're still learning how this stuff works. And I got to be honest with you, I'd love to know.
well, what you just described is one of the supply chain strategies that companies look at. So back during the COVID pandemic, and you heard supply chain disruptions and things, these other coined terms, but people didn't understand what that really meant.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those decision processes that shipping companies will go through and say, "Hey, look, let me look at the timing that I'm at. Oh, I'm going to arrive on a U.S. national holiday. Oh, there's now going to be costs associated with that. How do I reduce the most amount of costs based on my situation? It may have been that it was cheaper to pay the holiday fees associated with that because of what you just described. And
Mm-hmm.
it may be something that we can look into and actually get some answers to that. But I have high confidence that what you were describing could be one of those exact scenarios.
Could be this scenario. So, all right. So quickly, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, or hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available.
Absolutely.
So I gave you some homework.
Yeah.
And wow, you came up with a lot. So
Well,
we were talking about the Dali, and we talked about people. Where does the money come from? Why can't they just make the shipping company pay for this damage that they cause? And we've covered different aspects of that
correct.
in different podcasts. But then we're like, okay, we know there are some people who are suing different, what's the word? Different
Entities.
principles,
Yeah.
the entities that were involved in this. Is it the owner of the ship? Is it the operator of the ship? Et cetera. And I said, hey, can you go out and find out who's doing what? And so you came up with a whole bunch of stuff, huh?
Yeah, I can't just do some Google searching, and and summarization of everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to name 9 different active lawsuits. And so what I'm going to do is, as we go through this process, because it sounds like listeners are interested in this particular process. Yes, you're correct. It's not a one-to-one, hey, just sue the ship owner and then we get our money to go build the bridge. It doesn't all work exactly that
Yeah.
easily and streamlined. But there's also different reasons why there's different litigation cases that exist. So I'm going to go through each one pretty quickly
And
here.
you know what? Real quickly,
Mhm.
this would be 45 minutes with Alex.
That's correct.
And easy, right? Because he would drill down and talk to us about the specifics of each one of these. Just
So
thought for future.
Alex, if you're interested,
Yeah,
let's have a conversation on this one.
yeah.
All right. So the first one that I found is the families of the victims who did not survive the incident. So that's I understand that they were on the bridge, they were trying to do their job. That happened, and those just there's no amount of money that can address that particular problem. But that's that there is litigation that's around that. So the families of the victims have a lawsuit in place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the bridge inspector who survived. So there
Is
was
that the guy who like ran off the end and wound up in the water? Is that?
yes,
Oh my god!
yes, and
Can you
he
imagine?
was quickly rescued right after that. Clung to a part of it. So and there is some there are some issues related to that also. So there's a lawsuit on behalf of the bridge inspector.
Imagine what
Um,
he's going through.
the city. So the city has the city of
Right.
Baltimore back in April the 15th put in a suit against Grace Ocean and Synergy Marine and Maersk. So those 3 entities together, because
So
the
one's the
bridge.
operator, one's the owner, right?
Correct. That's correct, and that's the reason why both of them are named in this. But the
Mm-hmm.
city has put in a suit because the bridge was within the city limits.
Mm.
The fourth one I found is that the ILA, so the International Longshoremen's Association has filed suit against lost wages for all of the port workers here at the Port of Baltimore. And so, I
That's
mean,
a lot of money.
well, it's a lot of money, but those workers were forced out of work for a
Oh
defined
yeah,
period of
that's what
time
I'm
because of
saying. I
it.
mean, because we talked about how many people were out of work or how much, and so your job that you go to every day, that you've got this great union job that pays well, and you might have friends and family there, or you might have family members who have worked there, and
Absolutely.
right, and you're doing your part to help the port and move everything through and all this great stuff, and then somehow one day there's this tragic thing that happens and nobody can work. I mean, and multiply that out times months times how many people? Wow.
It's something that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So the ILA has a lawsuit in place. There was also a Baltimore-based publishing company who filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of local businesses due to lost revenue. And so when you look at the whole supply chain ecosystem, it's not just the Port of Baltimore. It's not just, Seagirt Marine Terminal and Ports America Chesapeake and the ILA. It's the truckers that come in and out. It's the warehousing outfits
Mm-hmm.
that exist on the other side of the terminal who interact with those customers or the final destinations.
And any company that ships anything through the
Any
port.
they were impacted, and so this publishing company has a lawsuit on behalf of all the local businesses.
Wow.
The sixth one I found is from a company called Bronner Builders, and they're the construction company employing the workers who perished. So it's not just the families who lost those
Right.
workers, but it's also the company who's doing the work on the bridge. They have
Right.
they have a lawsuit due to gross negligence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be an interesting cause of gross negligence versus some of the other named issues within the
So
the
the other
various
ones were
lawsuits.
different. They didn't use that term.
This is the first one that I noticed that gross negligence on the part of the participants,
Mm-hmm.
and this is also a term that when I was working in industry and looking at freight related insurance and gross negligence was sometimes a terminology that was used for insurance claims and validation for that process.
Mm-hmm. And then if we go back and I like to just say that I am not a ship designer. I am not a ship engineer. But when we watch Sal's podcast,
Yes,
and he went into the details of, you guys had 4 generators, and then you said, oh, I'm going to use these 2 generators for one type of fuel and these 2 generators for another type of fuel, when it really wasn't designed to work like that. And then there was some priming pump or something that they replaced that isn't designed to come back up from a catastrophic event from a power failure,
right.
right? And so there's like a list of things that led to that. So,
Correct. So that was the sixth one. The seventh lawsuit is being issued by Ace American Insurance, and they are
this is
they're
the state one, basically, the state's insurance policy on the bridge,
on the
right?
bridge. That is
Yes.
correct. So
Okay.
this is because the bridge was damaged and brought down. This was the insurance policy that supported that. They've already paid the $350 million to the state for that policy.
Okay.
This lawsuit is to recoup what they have paid to the state.
Oh, okay. So kind of the
So,
back end of that. Okay.
okay, so
Interesting.
the Justice Department. So this is the federal lawsuit. Uh, they have
Oh,
a
right.
$100 million claim, and this one has actually been settled out of court at this point. I'm still going to track it to see if there's any other dispositions afterwards. Um, but Grace Ocean and Synergy Marine have already agreed to pay 1.19 million.
Interesting. 101, right?
Yeah, so it was a little extra change in that one
Right. And that was because, as I recall, um, so, you have all these people that show up to this disaster response, right? And probably the way some people think, sometimes I do, is, well, what do you mean it costs money? Aren't all these people already working? Aren't they already employed by all these agencies? But
yeah,
when they're all working 24 hours,
and this
and you've
wasn't
got this peak influx, so you are spending money, because guess what? Just because it's a horrible disaster doesn't mean people are going to work around the clock for free.
correct.
So,
And they were doing other jobs. It wasn't like this was on their agenda to be working on. So they, whatever it was that they were working on is not being worked on at the time.
right. And remember, we talked about the Army Corps of Engineers. They had to take some of their budget, which was for like dredging and maintenance, move the money over to this pile so they could spend it on disaster, right? And then they had to get the money back into the maintenance. And so I think that's part of what this is.
Correct. And then the ninth one is the lawsuit that the state of Maryland has filed for all of their issues and follow up. So there's
All the money
nine.
that they spent.
What's that?
And all the money that they spent.
Correct.
That they weren't planning on spending on a disaster.
So that's a quick summary of all 9 that I have found. There may be some others, but because there's some interest in this, I'm going to start tracking this, and we'll as updates happen to each one of those, we'll explain what all is happening with that.
Okay.
Kind of tied to this. So, like I said, one of the lawsuits was focused on the small businesses. This week, PNC Bank has announced a local grant that's now available for small businesses who may have been impacted. So this is separate from any litigation or anything. This is
Mm-hmm.
just PNC Bank having some funding that they wish to help support those
That
small
that's
businesses.
nice because I guess I didn't realize, and I think a grant. I basically maybe incorrectly assumed that it all came from the government. So there are
Mm,
grants that companies have, and they're willing to donate some money, basically, right?
absolutely.
Wow, that's
So
cool. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no. So in this particular case, the Community College of Baltimore County has received a $95,000 grant for local businesses impacted by the bridge collapse from PNC Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the grant opportunity is entitled "Building Bridges to Recovery: Strengthening Dundalk's Businesses Community Initiative." And so CCBC, with this money, will be providing educational resources and coaching support to assist struggling businesses within that region, especially because of the bridge collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those businesses within the Dundalk region have the opportunity to join an 8-week cohort based program. It will include one-on-one business coaching, staffing support, networking, and other resources to help establish and implement a growth plan to get them back to where they need to be. There'll be some workshops that include strategic planning, funding options, sales and marketing, business planning, and finance related skill sets. So if there's any of the businesses in the Dundalk area who may
Mm-hmm.
have been impacted by this, um, please reach out to the Community College of Baltimore County. If you want to speak to Maura Riley, she is one of my co-workers, colleagues, a phenomenal woman who understands the business aspects, especially within the various regions within the Baltimore area.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to her. M. Riley at ccbcmd.edu is her contact, or send Mike an email at mike@shipwatchers.com, and we'll make sure we
Mm-hmm.
get you the contact on that. So it's a great opportunity for those small businesses to use some funding and get some of the support and help that they may need to get back up and running.
So, big significant birthday this week. Um, Helen Bentley. It was her birthday yesterday.
How about that?
I know. So our friend Mike Wickline did a nice post with some pictures and wrote up some stuff. I'm just gonna go ahead and read some of this,
Yeah, sure.
some of these points.
Yeah, and he's got some direct connections, not only working with Helen in her latter years, but he's
Mm-hmm.
also got some family connection with too.
Yes, yes. So November 28th, 1923 was Helen Delich Bentley's birthday, making Thanksgiving Day 2024 101 years since she came into the world at a copper mining town in Nevada. Helen pursued a journalism career, and the Baltimore Sun sent her a train ticket and brought her east just at the end of World War II. After a couple of years, they sent her down to the docks, and she fell in love with the people, the international ships and crews, and the heartbeat of commerce. It became her life's work. For 15 years, she produced The Port That Built a City TV series at WMAR, wearing heels, hats, and pearls while reporting out on the docks. And so here you can see,
That's a
here's the
perfect description with a perfect image of that here.
right, right. Just such a cool, timeless photo, I think. And I think I've seen this photo probably 10 or 15 times. And, it's just so cool because,
Mhm.
it was a different time. This was when, you know,
This was unheard of.
yeah, for a woman to go into a, an industry that was 99% dominated by men, and it wasn't a clean environment. And so there
But
she is.
that didn't let her stop.
Ah, yeah. Well, was there anything that stopped Helen? I mean, you can
No.
probably count the number of things that stopped Helen on one hand, right?
Right.
But such a cool photograph, I think. She was the first female chair of the Federal Maritime Commission, and the port was named for her during the port's 300th anniversary. So, and there's a little story behind that Maritime Commission thing too, which is so if it's anyone who deserves thanks from the Port of Baltimore, it's Helen.
Yeah.
So here,
I
let me.
so I've got some more some little bit more details of what you just summarized with some specifics. I was I was fortunate enough to have some interactions with her when I first started in the educational arena, and had to I had to go and present an educational opportunity to the Baltimore Port Alliance, and this was about the 2010 2011 timeframe, and I stood up in front of the membership and gave a presentation on a workforce development solution we were trying to implement. And I'd been told, some stories from my, former boss at the time. This really tough lady. She scares me, and I'm like, who is? Well, this can't be that.
What are you talking
Come
about?
on, Gloria. It's not. And so I went and did my presentation, and then all of a sudden, Helen Bentley started to stand up. The room was quiet. She stood up with her cane, and then got her cane up in the air, and she said, this is a good program. We all need to get behind it, and whacked the cane, and then sat down. And I said, oh my goodness, I now understand what's the pressure and the influence, and I don't want to mess this up. And that was kind of the blessing of let's continue to move on with this. So
Right.
but so here's some so I was fortunate to have some direct interactions with her, and just an amazing support and focus on maritime in the Port of Baltimore. She was born in Ruth, Nevada, to Serbian immigrants, like what you said. Her father was a coal miner. The interestingly enough, he passed away at what I would consider an early age due to some health issues related to the mining industry.
Sure.
In 1944, she earned that bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Missouri. So, wait a sec, just to try to paint this picture, you've got somebody who ends up on the East Coast, but started out in Nevada, and then did a journalism degree in kind of the Midwest.
Interesting.
But I also found it was interesting that over her time, she's been awarded 10 honorary doctoral degrees based on all of her efforts within the industry.
Wow.
So you mentioned that she went to go work for the Baltimore Sun, and they paid for that train ticket. That was at age 22. She was 22 when she was hired by the Baltimore Sun.
Right. And so you imagine you're living in a small mining town in Nevada. There is no internet.
No?
This is what, the 50s or?
Or mid 40s.
So, yeah. So a different time. So how do you even find the phone number? A newspaper that's 3,000 miles away.
You write letters.
There you go.
That's how she did it.
Yeah.
So at age 22, she became a reporter and a maritime editor for the Baltimore Sun, and that went on from 1945 to 1969. So a very long tenure there. During the 1950 to 1965 time period, it was when she became a TV reporter for WMAR, and she was kind of lock, stock, and loaded on all the whole aspect of the maritime programming. She produced, edited, directed, wrote, and conducted interviews for 2 separate series. So her first series was A Port That Built a City,
right,
and then she expanded that in the latter years of that time period to rename that program A Port That Built a City and State. And we've got Mike Wickline was able to digitize some of these videos, and I believe that we have some of those available for sale on your website, if that's
Absolutely.
correct.
Have DVDs that are for sale.
If you
As a matter of fact, hang on for just a second. You don't.
That's fine. While you get that, they're also available on YouTube, so you can search for That String and Helen Bentley, and you can see some of the short clips. And
Mhm.
Mike has been involved. There you go. That's the DVD collection of what they've been able
Mhm.
to digitize at this point.
Mhm.
So great,
Yep.
really, really neat to be able to actually see some of those recordings.
And the reason that this is sitting out is because I have to mail one because
There
somebody
you go.
ordered one. Somebody
There-
from Rhode Island, which is like, okay,
Oh,
this is pretty cool.
that is cool.
And and she ordered a Baltimore Shipwatcher shirt, and I'm like, you're gonna walk around Rhode Island with a Baltimore Shipwatcher shirt on? Okay, that's really cool.
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. So Helen also co-authored the book "The Great Port of Baltimore: The First 300 Years," and so it was
Have that.
a pictorial and historical collection of what's been happening for leading up to the 300th anniversary.
All right,
Uh,
as the admin goes off to the other screen at Amazon.
yeah. Um, from 1969 to 1975, she was the Federal Maritime Commission's chairman or chairwoman that was
Mm-hmm.
during the Nixon administration. So at the time, this is kind of let's put this in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This She would have been the fourth highest ranking woman in the federal government, and so that's where some of the lineage that you when you take civics class and learn where which position is the next in charge.
Right. And if I could interrupt for just a second, it's almost like you need like a little timeline here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't mean this in disrespectful in any way. Unknown lady born in small dusty desert town in Nevada, right? Then goes to Missouri to get her journalism degree. Then comes to Baltimore, falls in love with the port, winds up the Federal Maritime chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission. I mean, it's an amazing story how you
Absolutely.
string this together. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a great perspective on that. After that, she served as a U.S. House of Representatives member. So she was voted into U.S. Congress from 1985 to 1999. So she represented Maryland's second congressional district during that
Mm-hmm.
time. She's received numerous awards. I did not write them all down because there were so many of them.
Wow.
But I also found out that she has christened 17 American flag ships. So you know how they do the whole
Yeah.
champagne bottle crack. So
Yeah.
5 of which she named simultaneously at Sparrows Point Shipyard in 1987. So some really, really cool nuggets right there. Some of her official. Now I said, and this is with quote. So these are terms of endearment. They are not negatory, nicknames.
And I'm reading them on the other screen and laughing because
Yeah. So official names are quote Tugboat Helen and quote Battle Axe. Or
that's
nicknames.
not something that's normally used as a
Yeah,
term of
I would.
endearment, which is why you emphasize that point.
Correct. And so in doing this research, I've already made another note to go, how did those nicknames come about and what do they really mean and who gave them? So
Right.
I made some homework for myself.
Right. And I wanted to, and I know you're not done, but, and I want to say this is one of those things where you open a can, right?
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, let me root into the kitchen cupboard and see what else is in here, right? Because you open a piece of history and so we've got some bullet points here, right?
Right.
And we're talking about these 10, 20 bullet points. And it makes you want to go find paragraphs. It
Mm-hmm.
makes you want to learn more and find out more. So when you're talking, so my immediate thought when you said that she named 5 ships simultaneously at Sparrows Point shipyard. So the first tour that I took of Trade Point, we were supposed to sell tickets and rent a bus, and it was supposed to be a whole big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we never sold any tickets because we could only go on weekdays, and it was going to cost everybody $40, and who has $40 to take off a day and on a
Right.
weekday, and so it didn't work. So, but they were like, "Oh, well, you sold 4 tickets. Come on over. We'll drive you around in an SUV." We wind up driving across the one shipway that's left. So shipway, like giant concrete launching
Mm-hmm.
ramp. They would build ships on an angle
Mm-hmm.
and then launch them into the water. So wouldn't it be interesting if we could figure out or prove that she may have done that on the one shipway that still exists? And then you and I could go over there and say, we
There you
stood
go.
on the same place that Helen kind of a cool thought. I don't know if it would all line up like that, but it's kind of a cool thought.
I bet you it wouldn't be that hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
Some other importances that she had to the maritime industry included a substantial role in the 1970 Merchant Marine Act, and so that helped to put that law in place by strengthening the American maritime industry and keeping maritime jobs in the U.S. And this was something else that was interesting. She was actually on the SS Manhattan when it crashed through the Arctic ice to make a new Northwest Passage to help support Alaskan petroleum exports and some of the drilling. And that was tied to some of the um, Federal Maritime Commission duties that was involved with that. So definitely a huge impact. It's more than, yes, she's the namesake of the port for obvious reasons, but to really drill down into some of the things that she was involved in is just amazing.
Yeah.
To bring us to where we're at today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
You and I attended a port function about a week ago or so.
Yeah.
The World Trade Center Institute hosted their yearly State of the Ports address, and it was
If I
down.
could just take a moment to
Sure.
thank Trade Point Atlantic for my complimentary ticket. It was really cool to be able to be included, um, in port folks that attended that event, and to be able to be there. That was really cool.
Great. It was held down at the
What used to be the Columbus Center.
correct at the facility there. There were 2 breakout sessions that started off the event. One was on the supply chain resurgency coming out of the pandemic and kind of tied to what was happening with the bridge collapse. You and I sat in the workforce development breakout session where they talked about the different generational divides and what some of the companies are having to do today in order to address the workforce shortages and how do we train or how do we educate the next generation of maritime and port workers on what those career pathways are,
and how do we retain them? That seemed to be a big point that was made in that meeting.
And what certain generations use as factors for employment or retention within a particular job is quite different across that. So that was pretty interesting too. Then we went into a reception area. And did you try any of the food and drinks that were at some of the stations? There were some.
Yes. There was some great.
The World Trade Center Institute provides an opportunity where international flares of food and drink options that the
as related to countries and areas that we work with here at the port.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So it was really neat to try some of that, some of the different food and drink options that they had available, and to network with some of our colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a large session where Wiedefeld spoke, Paul Wiedefeld, who is Secretary of Transportation for the state, and gave an overview of what all is happening across all the major modes of transportation here in the state. There was a big focus on the transit, and he did mention some of the things that are happening at BWI Airport, but he also mentioned the Howard Street Tunnel and double stack rail operations down at Seagirt Terminal. So it was a good chance for everybody to come together, kind of reboot and restart with everything with all of these initiatives that are going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting when you bring up the Howard Street Tunnel. Let's get into that. How that effort, we all label it the tunnel, right? But it's really an overall effort to clear a large geographical area, like from here to Philly.
Correct.
Of obstructions, if you will, in one way or another, to be able to get double stacks. And I guess because, and I just came up with this, because the main problem was the tunnel, that nobody ever bothered to clear these other obstructions up north from here. Like, why would we spend all this money and all this time lowering track and raising, 17, 21 different bridges and areas?
Correct.
Why would we bother to do that if we can't get anything through the tunnel anyway?
Correct.
And now that the tunnel was working, and so some smart guy somewhere said, hey, if we can get all this stuff done north of here, right, then we could run the double stacks north. And if you're a railroad guy and you're really into this stuff, that CSX, the old B&O, can either go like due west, like towards Pittsburgh, or their other line to get west is what I think we call like the river line. And so that's like up the Hudson, across the top of Pennsylvania, and like down like by Cleveland. Now that's an awful circuitous route, but other trains do run that way to get here to Baltimore. And so, some smart person went, so if we can get all these done, then we can route the trains north, get this double stacking started, and then we can actually close down the Howard Street Tunnel to get it done in half the time.
Yeah, it's good. They've sped it up by about a year and a half process.
Yeah, so somebody really put their logistics hat on that one and really thought that through. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. So that was a good event for everybody to get together. They have that every year. This year, because of the popularity, they did change the venue from the World Trade Center to the new venue. So look to see probably to have more opportunities for the public to be able to get tickets and attend that event.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think they're going to continue to grow that.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
we'll talk about some upcoming events.
Yeah, some upcoming events. Else? So coming up December the 3rd at 5 p.m., I've seen Trade Point Atlantic is really pushing their annual star lighting event coming up. I've seen some pressers for that. You can go out and see the famous Bethlehem Steel Star up on the water tower. And so they have their lighting ceremony on December the 5th. On Friday, December the 6th, is Maryland's the Maryland Port Administration's dredging program's annual meeting. For those who are interested in the dredging aspects, take a look at the agendas that are coming out of that meeting.
Yeah, I would love to attend that. I kind of would really like to go to that, but I just don't have the time off at work to
to be able to do
Because
it. Sure.
that's 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. I can't.
And then two of our traffic oriented local associations, they've got some events coming up on December the 11th at 6:30. The Women's Traffic and Transportation Club of Baltimore has their annual holiday club party. And then on December the 12th from 6 to 10, the Traffic Club of Baltimore, they're having their annual holiday dinner. So if you're interested in any of those events, do your Google search. They're going to come up pretty quickly. From a history perspective, we've got two different directions we're going in. No pun intended here. So, and this was you brought this up. Both of the tunnels were christened and opened in November.
I know. So one of them was actually today. Right. The harbor tunnel was today, and we're prepping for the podcast, and I'm, going through my sources and looking up stuff, and okay, what did I want to talk about this weekend? And up pops MDTA's website saying on this day, in 1957, the harbor tunnel opened. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that we've had these posts and discussions in the Facebook group. And so then I go to the Facebook group and I'm like, okay, I'm typing in some stuff and doing some searches, and I'm like, wait a minute, the I-95 tunnel opened the same week? What? I mean, 30 years apart or whatever, but...
Do you think they planned that, or was it just luck?
I'm going to go with luck.
Okay, that's fine. So November the 24th, 1985, the I-95 tunnel was opened. November the 29th, 1957, the harbor tunnel was opened. So those are your Thanksgiving history nuggets for the tunnels that we so cherish every day. I should be saying I'm thankful that I have a tunnel that I can go through every day to go to work at this point. So
that would be a good way to look at it, wouldn't it, my friend?
Yep.
So this is one of the sections of the I-95 tunnel just kind of floating. So I think this was, gosh, I get these two mixed up. In the comments of this picture, one of the tugboat captains said this is Pier 1, North Locust Point.
That's what I was guessing. Yeah.
Right. Let me see. And then we've covered this before. Now where is this?
This is looking
east
south.
Or are we looking west?
Yes.
Well,
yes, because that Lehigh cement plant's right there.
So this is Ruckert property then.
Yes.
And we've talked about this before, how Ruckert almost went out of business because of this, which is
right.
So
I cover this in some of the later series of the Ruckert 100 videos.
Right. And so, we look at, we certainly advocate for, things improving and being able to, get traffic through the city. And this was a significant accomplishment in getting this tunnel built and connecting I-95. And then on the other hand, we're both maritime guys, and we love to celebrate, our maritime history, and especially the three big companies that have been here for over 100 years, Ruckert, Domino, and Vane Brothers. And to think that one of them had a significant blip, that's the nicest way we can put it, because of this, another significant accomplishment in transportation locally. It's kind of hard to resolve that in your head because, and then look at this. Let me see if I can. I just noticed this. Whoa. Let me see if I can. Is this like one of the ships still docked at Lazaretto Pier
I
there,
believe so.
like at Ruckert, like just hanging out in the background here.
Good eye.
I know. That was just lucky. All right, so here's the Helen pictures, but and then this is the harbor tunnel sections, and here's one being launched. You
Wow.
know, so it's fascinating when you think about it. You know, how did they build a tunnel? You know,
And
they go ahead.
can you zoom in a little bit and see what ship is docked next to it?
What ship is docked? I don't
Yeah, you
see
got
it.
it.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even see that. And look, these are dry docks over here. It looks
Yep.
like. Let's see. Why do you know what it? Oh,
No, I don't. I don't.
all right. Almost. You can almost make it something America. And
It's
this
got
is
a.
neat. Look at the sections being
I
prepared
know. Look at that. Look at the size comparison.
to be welded in. And here's the people just watching this thing, you know, kersplash. Something America. It's 5 letters.
Okay.
Interesting.
So the tunnel's being built right in amongst everything that we're doing at the within a maritime perspective during that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah,
Built
some cool pictures of.
built in dry dock and sunk.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, you think about, you know, oh geez, how do they do this? And then they dig a giant trench in the bottom and then lift these pieces in and then connect them, you know, just
Seal it up, pump the water out.
yeah. And then in some places, didn't they actually have to take cement mixers apart and lower them down into the tunnel, and then they had to rebuild them because
Oh wow.
they wanted to lay the roadway and do the work before they could connect it. They didn't want to worry about. They didn't want to delay it so much that they would wait to drive stuff in. So they actually lowered them down into the water, reassembled them, and then did some work, like laying the roadway, did some cement work before they connected both ends.
Just
Crazy,
the just the
crazy.
planning for that engineering is just crazy.
Right, right. Anyway, I wanted to get those pictures in.
Yeah. So in a little bit different direction with the history,
Mm-hmm.
I found this quite interesting, and this is something that I always kind of wondered about. But this is from the Baltimore
So
Magazine. So
tell a
this is
little bit about your story that we were talking
yeah.
about
So
before we
so
came
this
on.
was about sauerkraut, and so I'm from the South. I've had sauerkraut before, but it wasn't something we didn't cook it good. You know, it was just kind of a force it.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Y'all didn't know what you were doing.
No, we didn't. No, I agree. I'll take that cut. So when I moved to Maryland and we would go to Mr. Lane's house for Christmas, and
Mm-hmm.
we would have a wonderful Polish breakfast, which included the apple, you know, the apples and kraut and the various Polish sausages, and just a wonderful meal that we would have every year before
Mm-hmm.
he unfortunately passed away. And so the sauerkraut kind of to me was something. Okay, it's here, it's Baltimore. This is what you do, but I never understood why. And
Right.
so,
And so, if I could interrupt, you know,
mhm,
my grandparents are all immigrants from like the 1900s, right? So my
mhm,
mom's parents are both German. My dad's mom is straight from Poland, right?
mm,
So growing up, when your parents are German and Polish, right, and you went between the two houses as a little grandkid,
yep,
you know. And you know the funny story. I got to tell this funny story. So
sure,
sauerkraut and horseradish. You know, horseradish was like a big thing, and you know, it's like, why is Granddad crying? Oh, it's because he loves it. It's delicious. What? What?
yep,
But it's just kind of a funny backstory.
sure,
And so I thought this was great that you dug this up because you're helping to tell the story of my heritage that maybe I didn't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Onward,
All right.
sir.
So from the Baltimore Magazine, they were kind of given the description of the role of sauerkraut and how that history in Baltimore, has a connection. So,
Yeah.
most people are going to look at sauerkraut as, something you put on hot dogs. And that's kind of where I came from. You got a hot dog, you put sauerkraut on it. That's how you eat it. Or a Reuben sandwich. My father likes the Reuben sandwiches quite a bit. But here in Baltimore, that pungent cabbage mixture is just more than that, is what they were talking about. So the ritual took hold around the end of the 19th century when European immigrants passed through the Port of Baltimore. And here's where the historical connection is, which rivaled New York City's Ellis Island as a gateway to prosperity. So everybody, you think Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, everybody was coming through there. No, the Port of Baltimore was an equal rivaled port for immigration during this time also.
And we can trace that back. There's at least, you and I know of at least 2 locations where
Correct.
there were set up, to bring folks in.
Correct.
Yeah.
So not long after Thanksgiving was declared a U.S. holiday in 1863, and this is something I just thought that, Thanksgiving was from the first day.
Right.
But it wasn't official until then. We learned that roughly 25% of Baltimoreans had come from Germany. Okay, so that kind of paints that picture. That's not where sauerkraut came from. It actually started off in ancient China, but the Germans picked it up and really turned it into one of their staples.
Wow.
But the German people began curling and fermenting their own cabbage sometime in the 1600s, which made it an affordable cuisine. So it was something that was easy and cheap to make. Inevitably, sauerkraut would follow Eastern European countries, or the families, to the kitchens in Charm City in Baltimore. And so that's the reason why we have sauerkraut at Thanksgiving here in this region.
Cool, man.
It's tied really to that, to the Port of Baltimore.
Wow, that's a really cool story. I love that.
Yeah.
What else we got? Anything?
I think that's about it for today with
Okay.
the short week and the Thanksgiving holiday this week. I think that's about it.
When we were prepping for the podcast today, and and I'm thinking, gosh, it doesn't seem like we have a lot here. And then I look at what we prepared, and we had the 2 things about the tunnels. We had 9 suits for the Dali. We had all that stuff with Helen, and I'm like, okay, there's plenty here. But I feel like I say that every week.
That's how it all works out.
Yep. All right, so just to go over, so Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers, we are a Facebook group. We have almost 16,000 members. So it's a great, friendly place where you can go and learn about what happens at the port. Also, we have the live stream camera where you can watch ships come and go. And that's really another separate community where you click on YouTube and there's a chat running. And there are a lot of details about the port that happen in that chat. So you can it's a whole entirely different community where you can learn some more details about the port. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as Balto Ches.
And if you want to listen to the audio version of this, Spotify and Apple Podcasts is where you can pick up the audio version of this podcast.
And those links are all on the podcast page, which is on our website.
That is correct.
If you don't want to go search for it, you can just go right there and click on it. So also, if I may, we also have a bunch of swag that we sell, and it's coming up on Christmas time. So we do have the calendars that we've been talking about. which is a 2025 calendar dedicated to the Key Bridge. It's nothing but Key Bridge pictures. I thought it'd be nice to have a collection of Key Bridge pictures now that we can't see it anymore.
And there's some
Now
really,
that it's
really good pictures in that. I do recommend you.
Thank you. Now that it's gone, I thought it would be cool to put that together. We do have one every year, but I thought I would do this one all about the Key Bridge. So you can go to the website. There's a merch page, and you can order the calendars there through Venmo or PayPal. The QR codes are right there. There's also on that page is a whole entire link to a whole entire another website with coffee cups, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, all kinds of cool ideas for gift giving for this holiday season.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you go out to the website and take a look at that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on there. There's a lot of information. There's port maps, ship schedules, just a ton of information on the website.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Ready to send us out?
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Happy ship watching.
All right, everybody, have a good week.
Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Talk to you next week.